Welcome to Plan On It.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Plan On It with attorney Christopher E. Botti, board-certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law. Chris has more than 30 years of experience helping individuals and families protect what they've built. I'm Sean O'Connor, and today we are continuing our advanced planning series. And in addition to Chris Botti, we have attorney Chris Michail here, whose focus is on advanced estate planning strategies for higher net worth families and complex estates. In today's deep dive episode, we're talking about Grantor Retained Annuity Trusts, commonly known as GRATs, and how they may be used as part of a larger wealth transfer strategy. This is going to be another interesting episode. Christopher, the Chris's, good to see you both.
Hey, Sean.
Great to see you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I'm loving this the sort of first deep dive into GRATs. I'm not familiar with GRATs. How about we just start with explaining what a Grantor Retained Annuity Trust is?
First off, it's an irrevocable trust. Most of these advanced planning techniques are irrevocable trusts for very specific reasons. And so with a Grantor Retained Annuity Trust, the purpose of it is you fund it with a very specific type of asset that ideally is highly appreciable. And any of that appreciation beyond a federal interest rate would actually pass to your beneficiaries without any gift and estate tax implications. So we'll obviously jump into the weeds of it. There's a lot of details, but essentially it's a great technique to avoid having to gift anything outright, and also to avoid that estate tax when you pass away.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I almost bristle at the irrevocable term. I don't feel like, I know that, we'll get into the specifics of what some of this means, but it's like, what? Irrevocable? I'm losing control. What's happening? How do people usually realize they've reached the point where a GRAT might make sense? What's the trigger there?
The operative word is Grantor Retained, right? Because it's irrevocable, but it's also, there is a lot of control that the grantors do retain throughout the process.
Oh, good.
But you're going to need it when you start exceeding assets as an individual over 15 million and then a couple over 30 million. But when you especially have assets that are very highly appreciable, it doesn't even have to be, you have 2-year GRATs and then you have 20-year GRATs. You can swap assets. You can do anything you want. So there's just a myriad of options available with these GRATs, but it really comes down to getting close to that $15 million threshold as of 2026, and then 30 million for a couple.
You said highly appreciative assets, right? A couple of examples.
So concentrated stocks, NVIDIA, Alphabet, things that are clearly just exploding right now. Pre-IPO, SpaceX is a good example if you happen to have those holdings. Closely held businesses where clearly there is a lot of profit coming in, and it's privately held stock. So they're various types of assets that would be great for this type of structure.
And what's the main goal of using a GRAT?
So with all this, it's to avoid gifting while you're alive, and then of course the estate tax when you pass away. But the way that it's structured, you want to focus, one, on the type of asset that it's going to be funded, and then two, that magic hurdle rate, what they call a 75/20 rate. And that is set by the IRS. It's a federal rate. And why that's so crucial is because as long as that asset appreciates higher than that 75/20 rate, then anything beyond, whatever that asset appreciates above is going to pass your beneficiaries free of the estate tax and the gift tax. So basically what that means is you're getting those annuity payments back. And there are actually ways to structure those too, where you can start with a smaller annuity and actually grow over time. And of course, those interest rates are going to come back as well. So it's going to be both of those coming back to you. And then anything that asset is actually appreciating beyond that 75/20 rate just goes to your beneficiaries with you don't have to file what they call a 709 for the gift tax. And then when you pass away, it's not going to be includable in your estate. And so it's a great technique to really avoid any of those unwanted tax liabilities that could really, hold that's affecting that generational wealth if you're having to pay a 40% tax on that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Chris, Botti?
So Chris, the rate itself right now is currently published at what number?
So it's 5% as of May of 2026. Before, during quantitative easing and essentially zero interest rates, it was a little bit lower. It's between 2 and 3%. During the pandemic, it got as low as 0.4%, which is wild. So you have to keep that in mind, that these assets have to appreciate beyond 5. Right now, it's 5%, which is particularly relatively high. So it's also that you sort of sometimes have to wait out on that or find an asset that will appreciate beyond that.
Yeah, but if you're looking at like pre-IPO stock, like you think, let's use SpaceX as an example. They're talking about being the largest IPO in the history of the world, and just think about like it's going that stock once issued is going to appreciate greater than 5% per year. And so all that growth, that exponential growth, 10 times, 100 times X of the original issuance price is going to escape the estate tax. So it's profoundly. It's profound in terms of what it's capable of doing when you have that kind of appreciation. So you have the right type of asset that's ready to launch, so to speak, using an analogy for SpaceX, then you can really, protect that future growth. It's like, and it completely keep it outside the estate tax itself. So it's an amazing technique when you have that kind of scenario.
And I mean, is the GRAT just as created, just uniquely qualified for these assets that are going to increase significantly? Like why are GRATs so often used in this context?
So one of the most common ones is called a zeroed out rolling GRAT. And those are very short-term ones that, 2 to 3 years. And I think a lot of people would actually like those because they may want to see it play out as well. And it actually does provide that level of control because you're not giving up those assets at all. Typically you're not going to be selling, say you have some sort of stock, some sort of concentrated stock like NVIDIA or Alphabet. You may not want to be selling it, so there's no capital gains tax implications. But during that period, you may want to see, okay, I want to see how this plays out. If you set a 75-20 hurdle rate of 5%, but NVIDIA increases by 10%. That 5% increase, difference between the hurdle rate and the appreciable stock, it just goes to your beneficiaries outright. No questions asked, essentially. And there's so much beauty to that where it's short, so it gives them time. At least you could see it play out, and then you can play with it. You can do a 10-year GRAT, you can do a 20-year GRAT. So that there's just so many options with these GRATs.
That's interesting. And yeah, so you could. I mean, do clients sometimes do that? Where like let's just role play it. So let's like prototype one. Let's help me understand how this thing works. And you do one of the short ones, and they're like, I mean, is that sort of a process that's typical for folks that are new to this kind of planning?
Absolutely. I think that you want to see the immediate investment that you're putting into structuring these types of GRATs. And as soon as you see the payout, you realize that you could save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars just by doing a 2-year or 3-year GRAT. And so there's so much value to just seeing it play out. And I think it is a good strategy to start with advanced planning, just so you can see what it entails, what does this mean, right? Well, what does it mean to avoid the estate tax or the gift tax?
Yeah.
And so you'll see it. You can crunch the numbers and you'll see, oh my God, we just saved, $2 million just like that. Which
makes it very tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've kind of explained like, okay, what's going to happen. Assets inside the GRAT, they perform very well during the trust term. Are there ramifications? Like, can it do too well? Is there?
No. The only downside of a GRAT is if you passed away during that period, and that's why these 2 and 3 year GRATs should be a good way to start, especially if someone is older, because if they passed away during that period, it may be those assets may be includable in their estate. Aside from that, if the asset doesn't actually even get over that hurdle rate and is considerably lower than that 75-20 hurdle rate, there really is no implications. It just goes back. You receive those annuity payments back, and it's as though you never did anything.
Okay.
And so there, it just, and then if there isn't an asset, so you say you set up a 10, 20-year GRAT, and the asset isn't really appreciating at the rate that you want to, you can actually swap assets. So there's a power of substitution that you can build in to actually put in an asset, and that's an amazing strategy to really help people to make sure that they're using an asset that is going to pass that hurdle rate.
Yeah.
And one other thing was, if for closely held businesses, you can actually get a discounted valuation that the IRS allows between 20 to 40%, which itself is already providing immense tax savings. So there's myriad, again, there's just various ways that you're going to be saving on taxes immediately.
God, I wish I had 30 million in the bank and I could
Well,
could
it's a
save
good
another 5.
it's a great problem to have when you have
Yeah.
these types of problems, because you've got significant assets, and and you can have more than one GRAT. So like again, you can test the waters, the shorter term one, see the benefits, and go from there. It's just one of many techniques that are available. There's so many different ways to structure these, and so it's almost limitless in a sense what your options are. So it's the bottom line is, though, you have to look at, do I have an asset that is going to appreciate in value? And if I leave it in my estate, it's going to run through a 40% tax rate. Do I want to expose that asset to that tax, or is there a way I can potentially keep that out of my estate and transfer that wealth onto my next generation and have all that appreciation escape the estate tax system? And that's where they work their magic.
I feel like we touched on it a little bit, but besides or addition to estate tax benefits, are there other reasons that you'd recommend a GRAT to clients?
Yeah, Chris and I actually just spoke about this, and it is the income taxes. And so if that asset is generating any income taxes or capital gain, you're selling an asset and it's generating any capital gains tax, the grantor is going to be paying those taxes. It doesn't have to fall on those beneficiaries to pay those taxes. So again, it's their income taxes, capital gains taxes, estate taxes, gift taxes. There's so much value to these GRATs that once you start seeing it play out, you realize how beneficial it can be for the family.
It sounds like a powerful tool. The actual mileage may vary, like people, let's assume people, I'm new to this, right? Like, what are some of the risks or limitations, certainly, that people should understand before considering a GRAT, high level?
They need to be close to those estate tax exemptions, the gift tax exemption. There wouldn't be any reason to do it, because sometimes people are told to do it. Maybe they only have $5 million in wealth and they're told, let's get it started now. It may be a little too soon to go through the process, because it makes much more sense when you're actually getting closer to those exemption limits. But again, it really comes down to working with their financial advisor, particularly, or maybe a tax professional that they work with, just to make sure that they have assets that will make sense for the GRAT. Because you don't want to lock in an asset into those trusts. Obviously, there is that power of substitution at least, but maybe their portfolio is primarily an asset that it's slow growing, like real estate, and not quickly appreciable. So it really just depends on what maybe their financial advisor may recommend a certain sort of investment that they have. And so really that is sort of the downside is. And I don't see it as a downside, obviously. It is
Right.
just
Yeah,
a process of trying to figure out what assets are going to be the best for these GRATs.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it's not you're not going to lose the house, so to speak. It's just a matter of like, okay, where do you get the most leverage? And because I'm assuming it takes some time to set this stuff up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can show, like, with spreadsheets, you can predict, like, conservative investment returns, what the net result will be when you run numbers. And so if you're like a numbers person, and when you get to that level of net worth, you better be a numbers person. Otherwise, you're just sticking your head in the sand and you're going to ignore it, and you're going to have a massive tax liability. But if you're a numbers person, and we can run these spreadsheets that show this is the net effect of this kind of planning technique. And when you see it on paper, it's very powerful, and it's not for everybody, of course. But it's one of many choices, and we'll get into other choices down the road in this podcast series. But it's certainly something that should be considered.
Yeah, no, I like that. Now, as we just kind of wrap it up here, time wise, kind of zooming back out a little bit. in the larger estate plan, where does a GRAT fit alongside some of the other advanced planning strategies, some of which, most of which we haven't really gotten into yet in the series, but just generally, where's the GRAT slot in?
Well, just think of it's one of the tools you have to deploy. I mean, there's multiple tools. And so you've got that foundation built, which is the solid, typically revocable living trust and all the other documents that go with that. And then you're like, okay, I need to add another floor to my foundation. That could be the first floor, for example. And there could be additional floors added with other techniques. And so it's just a tool that you can deploy depending if the situation warrants that type of an asset that warrants that type of structure. And so there's lots of choices. And so when you approach advanced planning, you again, with an open slate, you're just like, okay, what are your objectives? What are the assets that you have? And we have a conversation. So it's one of many things that you can potentially deploy as part of a strategy to transfer of wealth without unnecessary taxation.
Excellent. Well, guys, we're about out of time. I know we'll talk again, and I look forward to getting into more of these individualized tools and strategies that you're both bringing to the fore for your clients. Any final thoughts before we turn off the lights?
I think just get ready for the alphabet soup of trusts that exist, because there's a ton of them. Yeah.
The driver, of course, is like, okay, if I pass today, is there going to be a massive tax liability? If the answer is yes, you might want to start exploring this stuff, right? And so that's the trigger, is the estate tax liability, which is pretty easy to calculate. So,
well, I mean, I think, and we're all guilty of this, regardless of level of wealth, is this the procrastination and kicking it down the road, especially some of this stuff that's like about end of life or, estate planning. It's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, or I'm fine, I'll do it tomorrow. It's, and I know just from talking to you guys and other knowledgeable attorneys, it's like, just make the call, do the thing, find out what, it's not that hard. And then it's actually interesting, I find, once you get into it, so thanks for sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.
You bet. Talk to you soon. That's it for today's episode of Plan On It with attorneys Christopher Botti and Chris Michail. To access more resources, including upcoming estate planning workshops and educational materials, visit their website, bottilaw.com. As always, thanks for listening, and do us a solid and leave some thumbs up, maybe a review, share a link with someone in your world who would benefit from advanced estate planning. And as always, I hope you have a great day.
If you're enjoying Plan On It, be sure to subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and like the post. Share or tag friends and family who could benefit from clear, practical estate planning guidance.